Okay. I'd like to bring our meeting to order at 4 o'clock. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So, I would hear a motion to approve the agenda.
I make a motion that we approve the agenda.
Thank you,
I'll second.
Seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. None opposed. That motion passes, and we'll go straight into the meat of it. Turning it over to Northwest Leadership Association.
Okay, thank you. Nice to be back up here. I wasn't involved in earlier this week's activity as nearly as much as Pam and Jane were, but the focus groups, and we're going to ask Pam to give that report to you in just a minute. But I did participate in a couple of them a little bit online, and I would say that particularly the one with the principals, I was really impressed with. They were engaged, they participated, they were positive, and questioned, they had concerns, but they were really, I told Pam when I met her, I've been doing this for 20 years, probably engaged in 100 or more of those focus groups over the years, and that was, if not the best, one of the very best I've seen. So,
That's good to know. Yeah.
So we want to go over that and the input on the brochure that part of the challenges and the characteristics you're looking for. And then we have a couple of other items we're going to talk about too, including the salary issue. So, but Pam, why don't you go ahead and start with?
Oh, okay. Well, thank you for opening up the school to us, and thank you to Kelly for setting everything up.
Yeah.
And I have to tell you, everybody was so thoughtful in their responses, from the community group to the teachers group, the administrators, all of the trustees, the cabinet. Everybody just really had just a great sense of how important this is, and they really, it was thoughtful, their comments, and I think you could tell they were really passionate about the schools and the district, everybody we talked with. But it was really a really nice process. I can't tell you when I've enjoyed talking with people so much.
That's great. Before you go on, I really like your wardrobe choices today.
Thank you. The big games tonight.
I know.
We were just talking about it.
We were just talking.
Thank you.
I gave my tickets away. She's
Keep going.
Okay. Well, I gave you a summary that, and Kelly was so kind to copy this. And what I did was, if you want these, Kelly has them, but I have pages of all of the comments from each group. And so if you guys want to read those, I know Kelly can get those for you, or I can send them to you electronically too. But what I did is then I just tried to look at those items that seem to go across all of the groups. So, feel free to look at anything, but
This is an excellent summary this way.
There was hundreds of pages, so I opted out of printing those for you.
Thank
but
you.
if
Do
you
not.
want, I'll just forward them on.
Yeah, keep it electronic.
And then Dennis did a great job with the survey, and I had Kelly just kind of give you those. So you could read the percentages, how they turned out. Looks like there were 63 responses. Is that
Yeah, there
right?
was 63.
64, yeah.
Yeah, 64.
And so I took all of those into account too when I was looking at writing this summary. So
Okay.
that's where I kind of got all the information. And this, we thought you might like to read the
Yeah, I've been reading through that.
comments,
Yeah.
and they're all, it was great. Sometimes when you throw these things out as a free-for-all, you have no idea what you're going to get.
Yeah.
Right.
These were all positive and really professional and thoughtful, so I really commend you guys. And if you look at the percentages, you can see that those things that that we listed as strengths and challenges and what they're looking for, they kind of showed up across this too. And I did, when I looked at your focus groups and when I typed these up, I took your 5 board priorities and I looked at where these matched. And they match all the way through. I thought that was so neat. The things that are happening in the schools and what people think are important are exactly what you guys listed as your top 5 priorities.
Excellent.
Yeah. Any questions?
So what page were you referencing there, the board's top 5
Yeah.
priorities?
Oh, I just took that off of your website.
Oh,
It was collecting ability. Oh, well, let's see.
is that the wrong one?
Well, obviously, it's not from this current
It's
board
from
that
our-
shows, but
Right,
it's
it was
from
From
the
our
strategic
previous-
planning.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
I was trying
it's
to
from
think
your
of
strategic
which,
planning.
yep, now I know which you mean.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's what it was.
So that's, I didn't know if you meant that was the top things you had heard in discussion with the 5 trustees here.
I heard it across the whole district.
That's terrific.
I just looked at it to match and see what
Yeah.
matched with what you guys' priorities were, and just about all of it does.
Yeah.
So you've done a great job of leading and working with the district. I think people understand the priorities and they're working towards them.
Yeah.
Summary sheet that you gave. Oh, yes.
So collating this information that we see in front of us and here goes into the packet, as you will,
The brochure,
the brochure.
it's to help you.
I have a draft of the
That would
brochure
be
for you to look at. It doesn't have anything around the challenges and the characteristics. I thought that had come out after tonight.
Yeah.
Sure.
You'll see where they go and you'll see how the rest of the brochure looks right now. And if you have any input in it,
Sure. I imagine this is the kind of thing most people look at electronically.
yeah, and as a matter of fact, as you look at this, the page breaks don't fall in the way they would.
That's what I was gonna say, electronically it's always a little different.
Very few people will look at a printed copy, they'll look
You're
at it
sure.
online, and it just is continuous. So, any input you have on this, either tonight or along the way, will be fine. The main input we need from you is regarding on the second page, the opportunities for growth and the professional qualifications and the compensation. Those sections are blank right now, and we need to get those filled in by the early part of next week in order to keep on our schedule to get this mailed by I think the 18th or 19th. The description of the district and community, I have to thank Kelly for that. She put that together with the help, Kelly, of some staff members, is that right?
Our CFO, our teaching and learning director, and obviously our current superintendent, so, yes. That's not credit by me.
So, help me understand, opportunities for growth is, how does that read to an applicant? Opportunities for growth meaning what we see as areas that need.
I don't know why with that title ended up on there. It'll probably say challenges and opportunities. Because what we really want them to do is view them as challenges that they're going to address, going to need to face during the first few years of their employ if they get the job. And
I can
that's-
see how that aligns with
Yeah.
this content.
And that's pretty critical because one of the feature aspects of their application, we ask the candidates to address those opportunities or challenges in their material. So most of them will write a document probably 4 or 5 pages long with the better part of the page focused on each of those 5 or 6 challenges. And really, the idea is to create a consistent path between this document, their application, who you select, and their first year work. You know, there should be common elements all the way through that. So we want to get those challenges right, and I think Pam's done a good job of getting started on that. Obviously buildings and facilities are a key part of it. Maybe we don't necessarily need to put them in priority order. That would clearly be one of the very top priorities. Funding would be another one. Creating or maintaining a sense of purpose and unity, probably get her above all that she has addressed there. It came out in the focus groups and discussion with you folks. So this is the brochure that we'll be trying to finish up in the next few days because we're tightening up the timeline. You know, it puts some pressure on us to get this done. And while the wording is important, and we want it to be right, we want it to be something that you're happy with and we're proud of, you know, we don't have time to sort of nitpick it word by word and probably get everything in there that everybody would like.
Sure. So when you look at professional qualifications, is that going to obviously have some, their level of degree, that they have their superintendent qualifications and all that is already pretty much understood. Will that involve a certain minimum years, a certain background, or will it also include some of these characteristics that we're looking for? I'm not sure.
Well, it can include any and all of that, and it just kind of depends on what the board wants. Now, Idaho, you have to have a superintendent certificate.
Yeah,
In
that's
Washington, you don't have to have one.
So the top item would be that, which I think everybody who's applying would know. But then,
you know, is it important to you that they have a teaching background, that they've had a building level principal, those kinds of things are, and I know you had a discussion with Pam and Jean about that.
It kind of came across with all groups that they'd like a background and experience in classroom, building administration, or a director, assistant superintendent, or superintendent. So so you could say experience in these areas. I don't know that you need to put years.
no, I agree, but I think that's a good way to word it then. Yeah.
And some of them said preferred. Like it wasn't a deal killer if you'd been like a assistant but not a superintendent.
I agree.
Well, and you know, speaking to that, having that be a preferred prerequisite. I mean, you know, Tom wasn't a soup before he was our soup, and I'm really glad we have him.
Right.
You know, so I don't want to miss out on somebody that has a credential but hasn't actually sat the seat yet.
You don't want to say required.
Right. Okay.
I do like that. Although I like the teaching experience, and I kind of think building administrator, principal or building administrator would be at least the lowest level of where I'd want to see somebody's leadership abilities have come forward. No, you also said or director, so there is. I think leave it preferred.
Yeah.
And we can sift through it based on what comes through.
And I look at it also from like the business and financial side of things. Like, yeah, it's great if somebody has a lot of teaching experience, but if they don't have any budgeting experience and leadership experience, it's going to be tough for them to speak and help. Not necessarily, but it helps.
And you could list finance experience and expertise separately from the other experience too. Because that came across pretty loud and clear for all groups that finance and really understanding budget.
It's a big deal. Yeah. Okay.
One one board member suggested it should say, must know a dime from a dollar.
Sounds like Burley down there.
I like that.
I'm
No
kidding.
player going down the line.
I had a question on this number 3 on professional characteristics. It says prefer the superintendent live in the district. Is that what, like, actually the superintendent already lived here? The search?
I think
No.
he meant that
No,
they would
means
locate.
Yeah.
willing to
Oh, right.
relocate and,
Well, that seems pretty
well, you'd
standard.
think,
Yeah, I don't
but
know.
Newport, I mean, there's a lot of communities nearby
And,
where,
and mostly people were concerned about the
Cost
cost
of
of
living.
housing here, and they might not be able to find something immediately. So could they,
so they might live in Bonner's Ferry or somewhere
like wherever
else.
they could find a place to
Hmm.
rent or something till they could.
Yeah.
That, people brought that up in the focus groups.
Well, I
That
have a
kind of
B&B
came up.
that I take long-term rentals. So
There we go. We got that
we
part.
got that
figured out.
settled. They'll be here.
So we have not with our superintendents here, but other districts have had superintendents
Commute.
live in for the week and commute home somewhere else for the weekend. So it is preferred, mainly because it implies that we're
Yeah.
invested.
And I agree with
Interested.
that. I just was
Yeah.
wondering if it meant that they already live here.
No.
Okay.
No.
One
And
thing-
it, go ahead.
Well, one thing makes it a little more complicated now than maybe 30 years ago is there's a fair number of husband-wife combinations where they're both superintendents, and obviously they can't have a primary.
They're going somewhere on the
residence.
weekends.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. No, I agree. There's,
Find out who's got pull in that relationship.
so that's why it's good that that says preferred. You know, that each situation might be different, but
And you'll have a pretty good feel, when you say,
Yeah.
Dennis, when you're ready to look at your finals,
Yeah.
you'll have a pretty good idea of what they're thinking as far as residents.
I
I
agree.
I
can help
know
you with
we
your
talked about
decision.
this a little bit, but I mean, this is in my wheelhouse. I mean, there's 70 listings right now in the MLS, and the average price is $750,000. So
Yeah.
not going to be real easy to find somebody that can just. It's not like you can buy a house for $250K and be here. So
No,
One
it's
thing that
very
happens a
different.
lot is we end up saying in their willingness to become an active, engaged member of the community, and
Yeah.
then you can ask them how they intend to do that. You
Yeah.
know, and usually they'll say, I'm going to move there and be there, and, you know,
Yeah.
my family and I will live there. Sometimes they will say something a little, hedge a little bit more like you're saying, where maybe they're going to be here 5 days a week and be splitting time over the weekend with wherever their spouse is working.
Right.
And you just, you know, that's another factor you take into account in
Mhm.
making your final decision.
Right.
If they're head and shoulders better than anybody else in the field, you might decide that's acceptable. If it's very close, that might be the tiebreaker that works against them.
Yeah, yeah.
okay.
So Lonnie, what listings do you have for Hope and Farm? Just saying, they're in the district.
That's right, that's true.
Heck, I don't know. Not much out there.
It
is a
I
big
hope it would be,
They make a
So-
live in Kelso. No way up, right?
We don't need board action to approve going forward with the brochure, but we want to make sure we discuss everything we need to before we go into executive session to discuss the
Right.
The calendar.
the range.
I think, yeah.
And I think we want to go over the calendar, and we need approval for that, and
Yes.
yeah.
The approval of a closing date. So I did put in front of you a superintendent search calendar with the last motion that you made of the application deadline of March 3rd.
Mhm.
But I believe Mr. Ray has also given and created an expedited.
Which we're already on track
calendar.
with.
Mhm. With a new application deadline of February 27th. So if you would like to change that to February 27th and flex any of those days or whatever, you would need a new motion to approve that application deadline.
So let's talk through this expedited schedule. specifically with each of the trustees looking at their own calendars. Obviously, the next 3 bullet items are not a physical meeting of this board. They are work being done, if we can say, behind the scenes, but don't require an in-person meeting. Then there is a report to the board, and that date of March 3rd. So we need to approve the application deadline, and then we can move a few meeting things around based on the needs of the Northwest Leadership Association and what aligns with our schedules. So that is sort of 2 different things. But if you look at March 3rd, I know there were a couple of conflicts with that, I think.
Yeah.
I'm out of the country.
Are you out?
Yeah.
So, yeah, and I'm out from the 28th to the 11th, but I can do.
You could do a Zoom.
I can do a Zoom. I would prefer for the preliminary interviews and final not to do Zoom. So if we keep that March 3rd one somewhere in that time where I'm out, it's probably okay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But-
A report to the board. You
Yeah,
could
but then
Zoom
the
it.
other 2, if we can move those back to where I'm back, I think I would prefer that.
So Jalen is gone February 28th through March 11th. Lonnie, you're out of the country when to when?
The 1st through the 9th.
March 1 through 9?
So I
Oh wait,
to-
no, I'm sorry. April. I'm sorry.
Oh, here.
Spring break.
Man, I thought we
Okay,
were on the same
that's
page
totally
for a minute.
different. Okay,
And now it's just me?
yeah.
sorry.
No, that's all right. So if
You're
we
on.
look at the March 3rd, I have commitments in Spokane that day for a different foundation.
Well, are we first off okay moving those other 2?
Well, the application deadline, I think I'm comfortable moving, even if we have to adjust a little on the other end. How do the rest of the trustees feel about that?
So my only concern would be, whenever a position has a deadline, we want to scrunch the end as close to that so that we're getting back to candidates as soon as possible.
Right.
So anything that works around that end piece,
I agree. We
That's
don't
my
want
only concern.
to. We don't want to push it back too far. Right.
I mean, I'd rather have more time for people to apply if we need to, but
If-
then get back
right.
to people immediately. Is
I
that
agree.
in line with your recruiting strategy? Okay. So however that works around your schedules, is great.
And now, are you guys thinking that those 4 days between the 27th and 3rd are gonna make or break the, top candidate for us if we keep this other schedule?
The expedite.
Yeah, and not do the expedite, keep the application deadline as the 3rd.
Right.
And that way, like Tanya's saying, we don't have such a delay from application and to all the other decisions.
Well, I think we're gonna need that time though.
Can I hear from the 2 of you if there are pros and cons to a February 27th as opposed to March 3rd? That's a week apart. Is there pros and cons in your, well, it's not even a week apart, but it's 5 days. In your mind, one way or the other? Between the 27th of February as an application deadline and March 3rd as an application deadline. Because it's sounding like moving the preliminary interviews to March 8th, 9th, 10th is going to be difficult.
Well, if we're going to keep the interviews where they were before, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Keep them on the calendar that we had earlier, then we might as well leave the application deadline
A little
too.
later.
It just gives, because,
Last minute
yeah.
people.
Yeah, there's less chance of losing somebody.
So I have then a request, if we stay with this first schedule of a March 3rd deadline, I'm out of town on the 15th, but could do the 16th and 17th. Does anyone else have conflict with that, including you?
Are you saying for the preliminary interviews?
Yes.
We were saying the 15th, 16th, and 17th all work, so I guess the 16th and 17th and 13th.
Yeah. I'm in Spokane on the 15th, and I would have a tough time making it back for the interviews if they're. So if we said 16th and 17th, and then the next week, 22, 23, 24, does that work for this board?
It works for me. Those dates work for me.
One more time, sorry.
This
That works.
schedule right here,
The original.
look at 16th and 17th for preliminary interviews.
March 16th and 17th?
Yes. Are those going to be late afternoon, evening, or?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm going to talk through that in a minute, but yeah,
Okay.
it would start at 4 o'clock.
We need to
basically,
keep
go
those
through
evenings
Through
open.
the evening.
Okay,
I will get your calendars blocked out for those days, for sure.
okay.
So Geraldine, we're saying not the expedited, stick with the March 3rd, March 10th, change the 15th and 16th to the 16th and 17th, okay? And then the remaining dates will be the same? That looks excellent to me.
If that works for the rest of you.
And you still
There-
moved up finals a week.
We can move the final forward. We don't have to leave it April 12th. We can move that up. Once we've made the final selection, announce it. Do we need to drag that contract out?
You know, all of that should happen, just kind of as soon as possible. I mean,
Right,
we
but
don't
that-
want hard dates into that.
And that person is already pretty much committed to us.
Yeah.
How close will we be to having a dummy contract already ready, and we just fill in the blank for?
Well, some of it ends up being a little bit of conversation with the specific individual.
But the
Yeah.
bulk of it should be pretty
Right.
close, right? So
Yeah.
between
There's not a big lag.
that announcement, final decision to where
Well-
the contract shouldn't be too
Yeah, you
late.
should-
One of the things
We
to
put
keep in
that
mind
in there
is
just to have some buffer if we needed it.
It's not great. This day off.
Lonnie's out.
Which day?
Well, it would be better if the contract either needs to stay after spring break
Oh, that's right.
or move all the way forward to like March 31st, because by April 1st, that's a holiday. I mean,
And you're
it's a
gone
national holiday.
first
It's out of school, so
But
no
now-
staffing here, and Kelly's off.
Okay.
So
I
we
was gonna
can't
say,
accomplish anything.
I don't think I leave until the evening on the 1st.
Well, she's not even at work on the 1st. So if we are going to do.
Yes, I would be, but I am going to be gone with my family for spring break. So
We're
we're
not
not
even,
here.
we're not even counting you.
So then,
So we would either need to move up to the March 31st as a contract approval, which may not be hard depending on the
Yeah, I think.
general agreeability.
I think you should, if that's an option, you should move it up to that.
Yeah,
There's no guarantee it'll happen there.
Right.
A lot of things can happen along
Moving.
the way. That's more of a target.
The roadmap.
Yeah, that's-
and we've already would have informed the candidate that they're
Yeah.
our person, and so whether the contract is right there or a week or so later, not. a big
well,
deal,
let's
right?
pencil in March 31st. Yes, that's
For
true.
final selection?
So
No.
no contract to be approved, March 31st. Announcement of final selection would stay on the 25th.
Okay.
There is one other difference on this schedule. We would still like the brochure to be completed and out on your expedited timeframe of the 19th.
But that's no
Yeah.
problem if we get everything done tonight that we hope to.
That would be great, meaning that,
We'll have a longer opening period that way.
Yes. It-
And that's good. That's,
it takes advantage of. So the brochure would go out on the 19th. And your mid-search report could fluctuate a
Well,
little. And is
actually,
that an
yeah,
in-person?
can fluctuate, but that's called a mid-search report because we'll tell you, what kind of response we're getting to the brochure and all of that. But the main thing we do that night is what's after the slash mark, preparation for the interview phase. We'll go through in detail how that's going to work, look at the questions we're recommending. I mean, we want to spend 45 minutes to an hour just making sure everybody's on the same page relative to that.
Okay.
But it can be done, and is often done in conjunction with another meeting. So you don't, a regular board meeting.
We have a board meeting that night.
No, we're not sure we do. We're not sure we're having second
Right, it's just
business
it's on the
meetings.
schedule.
Yeah, but we may not have business.
Okay.
If we have a board meeting, we may just have it be a
Special
unique
board meeting.
single item
Right.
topic.
Okay.
So
So I was just
Jalen,
gonna,
yeah.
sorry, we have the screening report still on the 10th. That's would be a second night that week. Are we able to do that at the same time as the board meeting on the 8th? After? Or
So back up, you're on the March, screening
we were
report
keeping
to
the
the
March
board.
10th screening on the regular calendar, right? Were we gonna keep that March 10th for the screening report?
Oh, instead you're saying maybe
What if we
add
just
it
put
on?
it to the 8th and tack it on, since we already have a board meeting? I'm gonna have to zoom in for that board meeting. And we
You
just
can just zoom in for 3 hours in a row?
knock the whole thing. Well, it's either that or I gotta zoom on the road. I'll be driving home on the
Twice.
10th.
Is that a workable, yeah, that's pretty late for you guys though. It's pretty late for them. They're driving here.
Do we have them
Oh,
come in
we-
earlier?
We can arrange the 8th.
They have a board meeting.
So this is March, so at the February meeting, you guys as a board could choose to change your calendar and start at 4 with them being first on the agenda
For March.
for the March 8th.
Starting with an executive session at 4.
Well, yes.
I mean, we'd open the meeting, go into executive session for an hour with you, and then, but we'd have to be pretty clear to the general public that
Geraldine, what step are you talking about?
we are talking about the March 10th meeting for the screening report to board, which is on the expedited on March 3rd, but we,
And
toss that one
said
out.
that we're going to go on March 10th?
well, the application deadline being the 3rd, you guys need
No, we
some
can do
time.
it then, that's
On the
no
8th.
problem.
We were asking if you would be available on Tuesday the 8th.
The 8th?
Is that too quick?
Well, if it is, all we have to do is move the you're not involved in when the application closes. It doesn't affect you directly.
Right.
So if you want that screening meeting on the
I see.
8th, we can make that work. The only thing I'll say is that's one of the more, that takes as long as just about anything on here during the screening. It's a pretty critical meeting. You're picking out the people you're going to bring in for an interview. What you're
Yeah.
really doing is eliminating everybody else, so you want to be careful.
So we don't want to put it in a timetable box.
Well,
So if
I would
you-
hesitate to put it before our
If
board
you
meeting.
have executive session before your meeting and you start at 4, you have to come out and start your
I
regular
know.
meeting at 5.
I know.
There's
That-
no exceptions.
It's not
You
gonna.
violated open meeting law if you come
If you
out
don't.
at 5:30.
Right, so it's better maybe to do it at the end, but I don't know how you guys are about,
That could be 3 hours.
We
it
can just
could be
keep it-
starting at 6:30.
Oh, that's okay, isn't it? Let's get a name. Yeah, we can make that work.
We could do a, what's
And we
that?
could just keep it on the 10th. I mean, that was just a thought, but I understand we're gonna have
I'd rather
how
not
many
have you driving
applicants?
though.
Well, I won't do it while I'm driving.
Well, I mean.
I'll just
it's
make
a-
sure I leave earlier in the day so I can be at a hotel ready by time, not a big deal.
We're,
Oh, yeah, go away.
Yeah.
would we be able to move our business meeting in March to start at the 4 p.m. time?
You guys could move
And
it to wherever you
then
would
we'd
like.
be able to begin with you guys by 5:30.
I mean, you could move your regular business meeting
What
to
does it
3.
do to Lonnie?
That's what I'm looking at. So
We're
March
just
8th.
playing with possibilities here.
You're saying March 8th, have our regular business meeting start at 4 p.m. rather than 5? And then tack on executive at the end of that to tackle this. That's fine with me, it doesn't matter.
The
to me.
screening report would then start at 5:30, is that what you said?
The screening report,
For us.
will you be providing all the applications that you've screened?
Yeah, we'll provide all the applications and we'll get them to you several days or a couple days in advance. So you'll
Okay.
have an opportunity
Excellent.
to look at those. Yeah,
Yeah, you'll see all of them.
yeah, you'll see
So-
all of them. And all of them may not be as many as we're used to seeing, because there's so many openings and some reluctance, it appears, on candidates' part to commit to a new job.
Yeah.
You may only have
A handful.
a dozen or
Yeah.
10 or so. If we have the right ones, that's okay. If we don't, then that's a problem.
So let me ask,
Just for transparency, and I've referred them to you guys and to keep to Northwest Leadership Associates. I'm receiving calls already at the district office from prospective candidates from Wyoming, Washington, Idaho. Has the board set a date yet? Can you give me details, about salary range? So it's coming, and I'm sharing that with them. And to, please watch the videos, to please reach out to Northwest Leadership Associates. And so, there's
Excellent.
interest, so people know
There's good
already,
interest.
and it's not even
That's
posted,
great.
so.
Yeah, there's good interest in it.
So you guys are aware.
And I don't wanna
okay,
just-
We have a good,
strong arm that date. I mean, I'm okay with the 10th. It was just a suggestion.
I'm not opposed to, we're together on the 8th, let's get all of our work accomplished, if that works.
I'm good with it.
Are you okay with a long meeting, Hurley and Tanya?
Well, if I'm not, I'll just start snoring. Tanya will wake me up.
Yes.
And the event
Give 'em a
center
cookie.
staying very
Wait.
late may come into conflict with the event center, because we do meet in their Selkirk Glass and Cabinet. So staying very late there for executive session may be a conflict.
So-
I can absolutely check. And this doesn't need board approval for that date.
Do we have to come back? I just maybe I'm ignorant on this. We have to come back after executive session to close the meeting.
Correct.
Correct?
Correct.
So we technically still have to have the
I would,
auditorium part
for
going.
this sort of a
Yeah.
meeting,
As new members, you guys leave for executive session like this evening. We're going downstairs, the door shuts. Then you come back out of executive session to the meeting room. You close your meeting, you make any motions after executive session, and you formally close the meeting. So it's,
I have one thing I would recommend for this length of a meeting and the number of people who will be in it. I would prefer to have executive session stay in the room we're in and ask the public to vacate and close off that door and have somebody stationed outside making sure people all leave and have our meeting in the room we're in. It is too tight a space down below.
However, technically it's still an open meeting in the main space.
No.
no.
I mean,
Once I've adjourned the meeting, we can ask the public.
Yeah, I know,
At
but
the
you're gonna-
event center, it's tricky because it's
You can
accordion
hear.
doors
Right.
and they don't actually shut all the way. There is, a 4-foot
No, I
gap?
wasn't talking about
and
the accordion
it
doors.
is not confidential.
You're saying
Everybody-
close off the entire,
I was saying, keep that whole room.
Right.
And ask everybody to leave, and we can ask somebody to stand at the door until everyone's gone.
But it's going to be a long executive session.
That's why I
Having
don't-
them stand outside
No, they have to leave.
or
Well, but they won't know when you
Outside
guys
the
are
room.
done with executive session.
Right.
So
Oh, and you know what? Nobody has ever stayed. That's why I'm pointing this out. No one has ever sat there and waited for us to come.
we've stayed when they've been quick. Like there was one I attended
Yeah.
before,
You
like
guys were still
3 months
talking
ago,
out there, yeah.
and it was like 10-minute executive session.
Right, and that
This
is,
is
no, I would be highly surprised if anybody but Kelly stays.
well, I have to.
That's my point. She's
Kelly's
out.
like, wait, I don't have to stay.
Okay, well then we need a new option, but we don't have to decide that tonight. That's
No.
minutia we don't have to plan, because I don't want to be locked in that cramped, little, cluttered room.
well. If we do it on the 10th, we still have to have an open meeting.
Yes,
Go
we
to
do.
executive. It's the same
But we
format.
do it here.
Yeah.
Oh, but it just
On the
be
10th,
here,
it would be here. You'd actually not even come upstairs.
We'd stay down in
You
the.
open the door to the conference room downstairs. Somebody could stand there, watch you move into executive session, roll call vote, and I shut the doors. Then they're allowed to sit in the lobby. And then when you reconvene into open session, I open the doors, invite them back in if there's somebody sitting out there. And
Although it's
close
not,
your meeting.
it's easy to hear in that room too.
Yes.
But we don't have, well, I guess we do have to decide that then, because that's the difference of location and date.
Yeah, that seems to be pretty important to have a good location for that. Now that I'm thinking so.
It is not that comfortable in that room, and sorry, to be honest.
That's the only
It's
room
always cluttered up with tile.
possible there? Is that the only
It's,
non?
so we don't know.
All that for nothing.
We've come around to not being sure where the screening report to board will be. We have already made a motion approving the March 3rd deadline, so we don't have to have an action item, but we have changed certain things on this schedule.
Which
And-
I can get to you with all this. With all these.
I know, we've talked a little bit in a circle, and I don't know that I
It's
have
up
a,
to you, so if that's what you
Let's just
want.
keep it on the 10th here. Like, if I'm the only one that brought it up, I'm totally fine doing that. I'll just make sure it happens.
okay,
Because it is pretty logistically nightmarish. Is that a good word?
yes, that's an excellent.
So-
Well, it does become,
so
okay.
We're talking the 10th here, is that,
Yes.
at 4 o'clock or what?
4:30.
30? Okay.
4:30 on the 10th.
And then the preliminary interviews on the 16th and 17th?
Yeah.
Yes, if
And
that
the
works.
final interviews on the 22nd, 23rd, 24th?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Contract approval is March 31st, right?
Yes.
So those are the only changes.
The 19th, January 19th, for the brochure to be ready,
Yep.
which is
Yeah,
a new date on the expedited, but not.
right, so it's moving that. Okay.
Okay.
Feels like a mishmash.
I know. So what we'll do right now, unless there's more content to be discussed in open meeting, is hear a motion to go into executive. Oh, go ahead.
There's one other thing, and I'm not sure exactly how your open meeting law works, but maybe this needs to be discussed in open meeting law. I mentioned last time we met about an observer panel that we would like to use, or that we would recommend you use in Port of Deal. And I'd like to talk a little bit more about that and get that squared away before we get into the salary discussion.
Sure.
Okay?
Yep.
Yeah.
Definitely.
If you would. What Pam's gonna hand out is an application form I drafted for this, but it's more of a script to talk about because it explains how this observer panel works. And with the changes we just made, the dates are going to have to change, be adjusted, and that's no problem.
Okay.
Let me explain that the way, or the intent is to have a panel of people that would sit in on the preliminary interviews and give you input on each of the candidates at the end. The panel would consist of about 12 staff members and 12 citizens. With the intent being that they be a nice reflection of a nice cross-section of the community and the staff. This document is an application for the community members, and I'll get into that a little bit more, but let me just talk a little bit more about how the panel works. What we'd do is have the panel come in, and I don't know exactly how the room will set up because I haven't seen it yet. But let's say it was here. You would be up front there with the candidate. The panel would be sitting in the front rows of the audience. And they would set it, the difference between them and any other member of the community, because it's an open meeting, anybody can walk in that wants to. the difference between the panel members and the bystander type is that they're committed to sitting through the all 6 of the interviews and giving you feedback, and you know that they are relative cross-section. Because while we're going to invite input from anybody else that comes in, and this doesn't happen too often, but probably more often than you would think, there can be a tendency for that audience to be stacked either for or against one of the candidates. Let's say, for instance, that you have a candidate that's a very popular staff member.
Sure.
They might load that up, not even intentionally. It might not be anything to do with what they're doing, but there might be 40 people come the night that person's interviewing, all of them giving you very positive input.
Right.
The next night, there might be a great candidate from Boise, and 5 people show up that don't have any commitment to him at all. And with this more objectively created panel that's committed themselves to giving you input on all of them, plus we ask them for more specific input that's geared specifically to the questions that you're asking, to kind of evaluate each question, each answer to the questions. Where the other people, the bystanders that come in to watch, the backbench, we'll give them an input sheet that's very general. Strengths I saw in this candidate, concerns I might have if this person's selected, anything else they want. But it'll be general like that, where the input sheet that the panel has will take the 10 questions that you're going to ask each of them, ask them to evaluate on the basis of those.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of different. Now, to look at the application, but the way that, first of all, let me talk about the staff members. The staff members can be appointed by the staff. For instance, you might decide if you want 6 teachers to represent, there's going to be 12 staff members on it. 6 of them maybe should be teachers. Then you ask the Education Association to recommend or nominate 6 people to be part of the panel. Maybe you want 3 principals to be involved. You ask the principals group, nominate 3 principals. You might want 2 classified employees, and but you select those in a more informal way. But for the community members, where you don't have the kind of captive audience, so to speak, we'd recommend that you run an article in the newspaper or whatever avenue you have to get word out to the public that this, and I have some models that I can leave with Kelly that we've used before. You write a little article telling what this panel is going to do, how it's going to work, what kind of commitment they're going to have to make, and then you let people apply to be on the panel. And then you sit down, probably at the time of the screening committee, or maybe a little before that, maybe that meeting on the 8th or whatever, and you have all of the applications, and you won't get a ton of them, but you'll probably get more than 12. And you go through them, the 5 of you, and just pick those that you think would constitute a good representative sample of your community, geographically, age-wise, relationship with the district, that sort of thing.
Okay.
And that's what this application does, is it tells them what the dates are going to be, and that'll have to be adjusted now to reflect the decision made tonight. And then ask for some information that you will probably find helpful in picking the 12 you're going to put on the committee out of the, let's say, 20 that apply.
I like that. I like
This has worked really well.
It doesn't really say age, but I don't know if that's violating some law.
Well, it might be, so we did.
So we'll just have to go by our general knowledge.
Have any grandchildren, that'll give you.
Do you
Let's have at
ever,
least a couple of years.
do you ever ask on this form something like, I mean, so we're basically picking our candidates if they have children and if they're involved in the community. Do we want to have a question that says something, what do you bring to the process, and or what do you hope to gain from participating in the process? And is there something that helps us narrow?
That'd be good to have
That
that.
would be a good, say that again and I'll write it down.
Yeah.
This was just off the
Something we have to
cuff,
see
but
through
something
that.
like, what do you bring to the process? So what will they bring to us? And what do you hope to gain from your participation in the process?
How about if we had them, if we had them just add on the back, if we said,
Reason they want it.
Reason.
Tell us why
Yeah,
this is
why?
important
by
to you.
any,
Tell us why you're
reason for
applying.
wanting to
Yeah.
join, they will be appointed and
Yeah.
what you
Yeah.
hope to gain from it. So we could add a statement, that's good. The
Yeah,
only
that could
thing
be
is,
that.
the way it's set up right now, you don't see it on here, but it's a fillable application, so they fill it online, and you'll figure out.
Right, I want free cookies.
Exactly.
Not Monday Night Football.
Heard you guys
So
have
that's why
cookies.
you waste
Why you want to be on
I think a lot of people would
So-
have skill sets that they could.
I'm going to, Dennis and Pam, I have a question for you. Do you feel comfortable finalizing these two things with Kelly?
Yeah.
I have to walk out of here at 5:30. So I would be happy to move into executive session sooner, but if I have to leave and you're still in executive session, you'll still have a quorum, and I trust you to handle the end of the conversation. But I just want you to be aware that I do have to leave at 5:30.
Well, and since you have to leave, my son has a game at 5:45, so
So
I would
he has to
love
leave
to
also.
be out of here as well.
So I would advise moving into executive session and getting into the heart of that,
Pretty
because
soon.
the rest of this content can be dealt with Kelly.
Did he, so, the financials or the, what's the word I'm looking for? Salary, that's an executive, right?
Yes.
Because I know you brought it up.
That is exactly what we have to move into.
Okay.
Yeah.
You like motion?
Are you, I'd like to hear a motion to move into executive session.
Move.
Read it, the whole thing.
I make a motion to move into executive session as provided for in Idaho Code Title 74, Section 206, subsection 1A, to consider hiring a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual agent, wherein respective qualities of individuals are to be evaluated in order to fill a particular vacancy or need. This paragraph does not apply to filling a vacancy in an elective office or deliberations about staffing needs in general. To communicate with legal counsel for the public agency to discuss the legal ramifications of and legal operations for pending litigation or controversies not yet being litigated but imminently likely to be litigated. The mere presence of legal counsel at an executive session does not satisfy this requirement.
I second.
Moved and seconded, roll call vote.
Roll call vote, trustee Decker,
Aye.
trustee Sherman.
Aye.
Trustee Peters.
Yes.
Trustee Williams.
Aye.
Trustee Lewis. Aye. Thank you, motion passed.
Okay,
And we will go downstairs because it is confidential.
and it's not, we don't have to shout.
Chair Lewis, I know you
Yes.
have two things in executive session. I dovetailed some legal on there. Do you want to take care of your salary conversation first, and then I can come in afterwards with the legal, or would you like the legal first? And then,
How much time should we save for that?
Mine will be very short.
Then let's meet with you,
Use first.
Okay.
and then 5 minutes later, we'll begin with you. Okay.